Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 29, Political Theory in a Globalizing World. Let us have introduction about the unit. The disintegration of socialist states in European Europe, culminating in the breakup of mighty Soviet Union, marks the triumph of liberalism over socialism, democracy over one party rule, and laissez faire economics over centralized economy. The bipolar world has given way to a unipolar world. In the wake of these developments, the world is witnessing fundamental changes in the form of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The trade barriers among the states are getting blurred, and a globalized market is emerging. In a centralized and mixed economics, the process of disinvestment and structural adjustments is leading to the shrinking of the public sector. How will these epochal changes manifest themselves in the form of newer concerns in political theory is an important question that needs to be considered. Let us discuss how political theory evolved. At the very onset, we must understand as to how political theory emerges in any historical phase. For example, why did Plato advocated the idea of an ideal state and the rule of the philosopher king? Why did he propounded his theory of education? Why did Thomas Hobbes give his theory about the state of nature and the social contract? Why did he favor the idea of an absolute sovereign? Similarly, one may ask the question as to why Marx criticized capitalism. Why did he plead for socialism and communism? Why did Gandhi condemn the Western industrial society and consumerism that it promoted? If we carefully consider all these questions, we will find that a political thinker does not write in a vacuum. He addresses himself to the basic concerns of his time. Every political theorist begins to feel agitated about certain maladies in the society in which he lives and wants to find out remedies for these maladies. Thus, Plato's ideal state is his response to the rotten state of Athens in which he lived. He came to the conclusion that all rulers in the Greek city states were corrupt and incompetent. Therefore, he suggested the rule of philosopher king who would have reason dominant in him. He gave his theory of education to ensure that the future generations of Athens would have sound mind and sound body. Thomas Hobbes was worried at the violent and lawless conditions prevailing in the 16th century England. He also saw the irrelevance of the theory of divine rights of kings. Hence, he advocated the theory of social contract and favored the idea of an absolute sovereign who could defend people's life, liberty, and property. Similarly, Karl Marx was full of anguish at the miserable condition of the working class in 19th century Europe. This class was suffering intense exploitation under capitalism. Therefore, he urged this class to rise in revolt and overthrow the capitalist system. He believed that in the socialist society, this exploitation would come to an end. Likewise, Gandhi saw the dehumanizing impact of industrialization, which he thought was also causing immense harm to physical nature. He also realized the ill effect of greed and consumerism that materialism promoted. Therefore, he advocated an human political order based on truth and non-violence, a social order rooted in spiritualism and humanitarianism, and an economic order whose cardinal principles were breed labor and trusteeship. The above illustrations make it clear that every political theorist addresses himself to certain key issues and problems that the society of his times is facing. In short, political theory in every speech of history has been the response of political thinker in the prevailing political and social conditions. In fact, one can go to the extent of saying that all major political theories have emerged in situations when societies were standing at the crossroad of history and had to make hard choices. The era of globalization is undoubtedly a moment in history when societies have chosen or have been forced to choose a certain course for themselves whose consequences will be far reaching. The question that most must be considered and answered is what will be the nature of political theory that will evolve in the era of globalization? How will political theorists respond to the phenomena of globalization? What questions and concerns will be central to them? What impact will globalization have on state, society, and the individual? What sort of local, national, and international order or disorder will emerge as a consequence of liberalization, privatization, and globalization? Next point is binaries in political theory, liberalism and Marxism. Before we spell out the nature of political theory in the era of globalization, it is necessary for us to understand the binary nature of modern and contemporary political theory out of which it will emerge. There are mainly two grand ideological designs in modern political theory: liberalism and Marxism. The liberal political theory emphasizes democratic governance where the people can articulate their problems and choices. It stands with for universal human rights. It is wedded to the promotion of common good. and it holds two human values, liberty and equality, as primary, although liberty often gets priority over equality. Marxism, on the other hand, highlights the fact that all human societies are class based societies consisting of the exploiters and the exploited. These two classes are constantly at war with each other, and this war will consummate in a revolution, leading to the final victory of the exploited class, which will pave the way for emergence of a classless and stateless society. In short, modern political theory is concerned with universal goals like justice, liberty, and equality. It attempts to identify the institutional structure of domination and tries to evolve strategy to demolish them. It is, however, evident that these goals of liberal and Marxist theory were never realized, at least not fully. In liberal democracies, the participation of people remained only marginal, and ruling power got concentrated in the hands of the political elites. This phenomena has been aptly described as the iron law of oligarchy. The socialist societies, on the other hand, witnessed excessive centralization of power in the hands of the Communist Party leadership. The exploitation of the workers not only continued, but in some cases it became more intense. The inequalities within liberal as well as socialist society became more acute. Human rights did not reach the disadvantaged strata of society in full measure. Thus, the grand utopian and normative vision of liberal and Marxist theory, aiming at liberty, equality, and harmony, remained unfulfilled. The inequalities among different countries also increased. These failures of liberal and Marxist theory alike gave rise to the new right and the new left movements on the one hand and generated a sense of cynicism and nihilism on the other. Next point is modernism and postmodernism. In recent years, an alternative to both these strands of modern political theory has appeared in the form of postmodernism. The postmodernists challenge liberalism for its abstract categories like the universal right of all people, and emphasize the right of specific group, women, tribal, blacks, and the colonial people, etc. This has led to the emergence of new social movements which challenge specific forms of social domination based on gender, caste, color, and race. Identity politics has become the most crucial element in these movements. It also marks a shift from macro abstract political, social, and economic issues to culture. The basic argument of identity politics is that individuals define themselves mainly as belonging to a given cultural group, which perceives itself as disadvantaged and oppressed at the hands of groups which are privileged and dominant. Males, upper caste, white races, and the imperialist countries. The relevant binary categories in identity politics become we and they. It is important to note that in practical terms, this new political theory of identity politics tantamounts to rejecting the Marxian category of class as a major tool of analysis. It equally vehemently negates liberalism's universal categories like universal rights, civil liberties, and equality instead of mega class war of Marxian variety. It emphasizes local struggles instead of advocating power to the working class. It advocates empowerment of the local communities and specific cultural groups. Next point is epistemological shift. In epistemological terms, this new political theory of the postmodernist variety negates three basic methodological tenets of modern political theory: holism or universalism, essentialism, and reductionism. It is difficult to explain the full import of those terms. Briefly, we may say that holism or universalism privileges the understanding of the whole rather than the understanding of the parts that constitute the whole. Thus, it talks in terms of macro instead of micro phenomena. Essentialism underscores the importance of comprehending the general essence of the phenomena rather than mere appearance of it. Reductionism in modern political theory refers to the tendency of reducing all analysis and explanation of a phenomena to a struggle element or a single factor. For example, in classical Marxism, all economic divisions and all social and political hierarchies are reduced to class, and the economic factor is considered as the only factor that determines the course of history. Thereby, the role of ideas and cultural identities gets totally ignored or considerably underplayed in modern political theory. The post-modernist political thinking, on the other hand, not only highlights patriarchalism but also emphasizes the relevance of several factors in comprehending phenomena. Instead of elite history, it stands for mass history and subaltern studies. Instead of history from above, it is wedded to the idea of history from below. Postmodernism also has its own specific emancipatory agenda, rejecting modern political theories' thirst for a systemic change. Postmodernism stands for the emancipation of specific groups. Likewise, instead of universal rights, it addresses itself to the rights of specific groups: women, gay, lesbian, tribals, aboriginals, blacks, and other disadvantaged groups. In fact, one can notice similar modernist and postmodernist streaks in the process of globalization. On the one hand, its thrust is on globalization of capital and primacy of the market, and on the other, it stands for localization of labor. Here we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.